just finished an episode with Gerald DuBose for the Mastering Midlife podcast. And in the episode, Gerald said that his dad said to him that youth is wasted on the young. And I had to bite my tongue for a second because I had the thought, wow, wealth and options are wasted on the old. And I just wrote that down real fast because I thought about it. And I thought about how many conversations I've had with people who have plenty of money in the bank, plenty of assets, but are still chained to a job, still chained to a 401k, still chained to the golden handcuffs, and too afraid to make a move, too afraid to even think about a move. So let me see if I can go a little bit deeper into that. When I thought about the fact that wealth and options are wasted on the old, it's because we've become so risk averse. Gerald was talking about how in our 20s and maybe early 30s, it's a time for exploration. We try new things. The consequences aren't so bad. And as we get older, the consequence seems to be more, just more. The consequences seem to be bigger. So the cliffs seem to be bigger to jump off of. Once you have money, once you have assets, once you start to think about having a family, once you have a reputation, you want to, we tend to want to save those things more than anything. In fact, I follow a lot of Silicon Valley startup investor kind of people, and they talk about the same thing. When someone becomes successful, they lose their ability to innovate and risk. So Elon Musk is one of those people who has risked his fortune several times and won several times and lost several times. It's an interesting thing in the DNA to be a creator and be willing to create at any cost. But let's go back to just you and me. As we age, as we get older, as we have more responsibility, our willingness to bet on ourselves is just tougher. So specifically, the conversations I have with people who have what I would consider plenty of money in the bank. They have a big house. They have assets that they can sell. They have room to maneuver. Just getting people to think about what they might want other than the job that they have. They'll talk about how miserable they are. They'll talk about how stressful it is. They'll talk about that kind of stuff. But to get them to talk about the possibilities of what they could be doing is harder and harder. It really takes a lot of pain and a lot of unhappiness and a lot of uncomfortability to get people to even talk about the possibility of leaving a corporate job, of leaving something stable and trying on your own. In one of Brené Brown's books is called Daring Greatly. And in the book, she says, a life worth living is being in the arena, is being in the fight, is getting dirty, right? And getting sweaty. That's living a life. And then she wrote the next book called Rising Strong because she got a lot of calls from people who said, I dared greatly and I fell in the dirt. And so she talked about how in Rising Strong, what it's like to risk to fall in the dirt, dust yourself off, get yourself back in the ring again. And we lose that ability as we get older. And it's really kind of a shame to not even look at the possibility. So the first place that I start with people is just getting them to list what they might want, what might be interesting, what might be possible outside of what they're doing. And then we start looking at a plan. We start having conversations with spouses, with the people who matter. What would it be like if I actually went out on my own? Would you guys support me? And then we make a plan. You don't have to do things right away. You make a plan, a 5-year plan, and work towards something that's interesting or a side hustle or something like that. The other thing I often get is when I talk to entrepreneurs who have risked and the ups and downs and ins and outs of entrepreneurship and how hard that is on their stomach and how selfish they feel. They said, I left the corporate world and I had a 401k and I had health benefits and now I'm running my own business and I mortgaged my house and I'm in debt, which is often what happens when you start a business. And the guilt for actually having bet on themselves. So managing all this is really hard. It's why I think wealth and options are wasted on the old, is because we're trying to find the stomach to be able to risk. I don't have the answer to that. It really is a risk. What I will say is society is changing. Jobs are going away. Entrepreneurship is on the rise, not so much because of ingenuity, but also because of necessity. There just aren't the jobs. So we have to figure out the gig economy, the entrepreneur economy, the inventiveness, the internet. There's all kinds of ways. I think it's really worth starting to look at before you're forced to look at how you need to innovate the way you make a living. Many of us didn't like what we were doing in the corporate world. And you can tell by the anti-anxiety medications, the antidepressants, the drinking, and all the things we do to cope to stay in that rat race. I'm not advocating jumping the rat race. I'm just advocating looking at what you're doing, how you're doing it, and what might be the alternative. Is there another way of looking at the way you do your job? Is there another way of thinking about how you can move on? Just things to thought, food for thought. No conclusion in this podcast, just to get you thinking. All right. I love you. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of the day.